again and welcome to my red shirt for the third time because I don't want to change my clothes. So last week we talked about stalking as a romantic gesture and it got pretty intense. We're not going to do that today. Today we're still going to be talking about stalking in movies and stalking movies. We're also going to talk about some wonderful trash and statistics because we all know how much I love statistics. I don't. We're still going to talk about percentages and shit. I had 31 films I watched and I split those films into two categories. There were 9 films involved in last week's category and there are 24 films involved in this week's category. And wait a minute, you say. 24 plus 9 does not equal 31. I'm aware. 2 films had 2 different characters involved. What? These are the characters in films that I watched for this video. This week we're going to talk about the concept and the lie of the crazy ex-girlfriend. And no, I'm not talking about the TV show, although I could talk about that for so long. I love that show so much. And it actually does the stalking thing really, really well. I might come back to that at the end, actually. We're more going to talk about the concept of the crazy ex-girlfriend, something the TV show's first season theme songs likes to tell us is a sexist term. That is true, but we're going to talk about why we consider it to be a thing. Does that make sense? It makes sense. I know it makes sense. I'm just talking. 24 movies, we had 10 male stalkers and 14 female stalkers. That's more women than men. That's a big theme of this whole party. 18 of the 24 couples were male and female counterpart, and 5 of them were same sex. 3 with 2 men and 2 with 2 women. And 1 is other because it stalks a group of people, therefore I can't gender it. I want to note something that I found really interesting, and we'll get to the crazy ex-girlfriend here, but we're gonna stick on this path of statistics. It's not statistics. I just want to talk about some interesting things about these movies because when we think about stalkers, this isn't what we think about. There's more variety in the men's motivations. More same-sex male couples than female couples. A male stalking an entire family, as I mentioned before. But I also want to mention, when I talked about the stalking as romantic last week, I talked about it as wanting a romantic relationship. And the crazy ex-girlfriend concept comes from there being a previous romantic entanglement, even if it's short term. 10 of these films don't really count for various reasons. 6 male stalkers and 4 female stalkers. Female stalkers involve jealousy and loneliness. 1 is more just flat out jealous. She doesn't actually stalk her romantic partner, but she does commit violent actions with the intention of keeping her romantic partner. So it's kind of difficult to count her as a stalker in this whole land. 2 of them more just want to emulate the life of their target because they want to use this person to fill a hole in their life, whether that be the death of someone they've lost, or they're just lonely. The 4th one, we don't even see it happen. She just uses it to kidnap the person and then spends the rest of the film trying to keep him hostage. So once again, doesn't really count. But for the men, the ones that don't count, one of them falls in love as he stalks the woman. The other 2 have an obsession with finding the person. They're interesting or something. These men, they're just already sociopaths. So you'll notice the women that don't count are jealous and lonely. The men that don't count are just evil. Just think about that for a second. Men are evil, women are lonely, which makes the crazy ex-girlfriend trope far more interesting because you'll note that there's not so much a crazy ex-boyfriend trope. Oh, this idea of women being crazy exes and men being sociopaths comes down to what I like to call the fatal attraction effect. According to the UK's National Stalking Helpline, 70% of stalking perpetrators are men and 80% of stalking victims are women. In these films that I watched, just the 14, not the whole 24, so this isn't statistically significant or anything. That 70 and 80% is compared to 43% of male perpetrators and only 36% of female victims. That may not be statistically significant, but it's a pretty big change. Why? Well, Fatal Attraction is a good movie, that's why. I'm serious, that's like the biggest reason for it. If we think about the relationship of women to men in all 31 films, there's actually this around the same number of male and female stalkers. Last week's video only had 2, whereas this week's video have the rest. Why are female stalkers scarier than male romantic stalkers? These movies, these ones right here, have all been considered Fatal Attraction remakes or ripoffs. And then this one came before Fatal Attraction, but it's basically just the exact same plot. There's no inherent ill intent in redoing the concept of Fatal Attraction, especially because Fatal Attraction is a good movie. However, it paints male stalkers as sociopaths and women as jealous shrews. Let's not do that. In 5 of the films, these ones, the woman attempts to ruin the man's life. She makes an active effort to sabotage something in her life in order to get him to come to her. Only one man does this, but he's the hero of this story confronting a killer. Spoilers. I should have done a spoiler alert. God damn it. What's really interesting here is that the problem with difference in motivation for the male and female stalkers is that, first of all, come across this idea that men are just inherently evil, which rude? Let's not do that. It also negates the fact that, like I said in last week's video, 71% of stalking cases involved in a previous intimate relationship between stalker and victim. And if 70% of perpetrators are men, then there's clearly got to be some sort of crazy ex-boyfriend trope, right? Because that's how it is in real life. Women are very scared to break up with people because they're worried of what their partner might do. But there's only one crazy ex-boyfriend all of these films. Just one. And that one man includes all 24 films, not just 14 that count. In fact, of the other men involved, there are a variety of different motivations. 3 of the men are obsessive fans in some way or another, versus 1 female counterpart. Only 1 is lonely. 3 of them were in love with their targets, but never had a previous relationship the way the women did, versus only 1 female counterpart. This shows a wide array of motivations for the men than the women. You get the sociopaths, you get the obsessed fans, you get the crazy exes, blah, blah, blah. But for women, you get jealous or lonely, crazy ex-girlfriend. There's not so much the varied motivations there. If you notice, the female's motivations are based off of jealousy, abandonment, and loneliness. In almost all of these stories, there's some sort of homicidal response to rejection or suicidal response to rejection. In the men, most of the time it's about the game, which is why a lot of the same-sex ones couldn't count, because it's more about taunting the target rather than being in love with the target. What this does is I'm gonna bring this back to Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, the TV show, which brilliantly deconstructs the concept of the crazy ex-girlfriend as it pertains to her mental health needs. We know that it's not quite right, but we're kind of rooting for her until season 3, when she honestly just spirals and becomes the villain of her own story. And that's when it gets truly terrifying. Mental illness is mentioned several times, but in only 1 case in any of these films is it ever actually diagnosed once. Most of the time, characters refer to someone as being sick or nuts. There are other more sensitive portrayals, like they'll say, look, you need professional help, or, you know, I think there's something wrong, or something to that effect. And a few of these women are arrested, 3, who are put into mental institutions at the end of the films. Of all 31 films, this isn't just this week's films, this includes last week's films. Only 1 time is mental illness ever actually diagnosed, which negates the idea that there might be something behind that. Borderline personality disorder is often cited as a reason for this, but I really hesitate to say that. People with borderline personality disorder are far more likely to be violent towards themselves than towards other people. So just slapping a BPD diagnosis on any of these women is not going to be helpful. And once again, back to Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Rebecca is diagnosed with BPD, but that actually shows that she's attempted suicide several times and actually does once on screen. Spoiler alert. What I'm basically trying to tell you is that Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is perfect and there's nothing wrong with it. But what I'm also trying to say is that none of the actual real things surrounding these women are ever actually discussed. What we get is instead films that are trying to recreate a very good film, admittedly, but in doing so are perpetuating this idea that is actually in contrast to the reality. Women exist in fear of potentially violent ex-partners, but this is not something that is handily portrayed in cinema. 2 out of the 31 films, this includes last week's films, had the man portrayed as a crazy ex, whereas 8 of them portrayed the woman as a crazy ex. That's weird, right? This is in contrast to the reality. Now, I'm not here to argue for more nuanced portrayals of mental illness in film. I want to, but that's not why I'm here. I'm mostly here to just point out the fact I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, talking about writing nuanced characters and writing nuanced stories rather than just writing what you know, and just rewriting Fatal Attraction in slightly different ways over and over and over again to varying effects. I gotta tell ya, this movie is beautiful trash. I love it so much. Go watch this gloriously bad movie. Do. Words. I need words. I have the best words. No, I don't. I don't have the best words, clearly. Instead, all I'm asking for is new stories. And if you happen to write a story that's similar to Fatal Attraction, that's fine. Make sure if you are gonna do that, make sure you do put some more nuance in there so that it's not just woman goes crazy and boils a bunny because man reject her. A lot of the nuance that comes from Play Misty for me in Fatal Attraction doesn't come through in the remakes. Now, once again, none of these films are actual remakes. They've more been described as ripoffs, but I'm more meant remaking the concept, not remaking the film. I don't know, sorry. So that's me talking about stalking. So many stalking things. I feel like there was way more I wanted to talk about when I started this project, and I also feel like the sun is going down, but nope, it's just a thunderstorm coming. The clouds are dark. I had a lot of fun watching I had a lot of fun watching these movies compared to last time where I mostly just watched like the best of the best. I watched some like absolute nightmares. I found the worst, like the most aggressively bad movie in this project. It's that one. But I just want to say thank you for watching this video. I hope that it was entertaining or useful, or you can watch any of these fun little films. If I were to recommend my favorites, it's these. I literally could just sit here and talk about like, you know, just the incredible trash I found watching these. I love it so much. So enjoy some wonderful trash film. That's all I want from you today, is to enjoy some of the worst movies of all time. Go watch The Room. It's way better than the one that I flashed up here for about a millisecond. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope it was entertaining or educational. I didn't dance this time. I should dance. Ow, that didn't hurt. I will see you next week. What most people know when I start watching a shitload of movies is that usually means that I'm writing. I use movies to break from writing stuff. So I am writing again. I have 2 writing related videos I can do. I can either do editing or how to choose which story to write. If you want to see either one of those, let me know which one you want to see first and I will make that. And yeah, so thank you so much for watching this weird ass series. I hope you got some sort of enjoyment out of actually super depressing content. My next project will actually be way more fun than this, I promise. This was just the list I had up. I just really wanted to watch some bad movies and that's what I did. Thank you so much for watching. I'll put all my social media in the description box below. I will see you next week. Bye.